We want to spend our time today talking about the time value of money. This chapter is the basis for the entire rest of the semester of this class. The topics that we cover here, the calculations that we learn to do in this chapter will build throughout the entire rest of the semester. And very important that we understand some of the basic concepts that we will see today. The first idea that we want to discuss is the one of time value of money concept. We want to make sure that people understand that if you have money, there are several things you can do with money. One, the fun thing to do, is to spend money, okay? And in some cases, that's a good choice. Another thing we can do with our money is use it to pay bills, pay down debt, reduce money that we owe to other people. But in many cases, one of the best choices we can make is to invest our money for the future. The reason that we want to do that is that it helps us become financially secure, and we get to take advantage of something called compounding. So the time value of money is not based only on the face value of the money that we put away or invest, but also on the profit that we can earn by investing wisely. If you think of it this way, if you invest a set sum of money, and at the end of the year you get paid interest on that money, the next year you have your starting lump sum investment plus your interest, and you begin to earn interest on both of those. And as you move forward, that compounding of the interest really helps your investment to grow very significantly. One of the simplest forms of investing is something called a CD, or a certificate of deposit. The idea with a certificate of deposit is that you put money in for a set period of time, usually 3 to 5 years, and you can't touch that money for the entire time. The bank guarantees you an interest rate of return, and because of that, people know exactly how much money they're going to earn, and the interest compounds there on that certificate of deposit. So the definition of a certificate of deposit is a savings vehicle that gives the purchaser the right to receive interest. Again, the most basic type of investment. The next thing that we will talk about is the market value concept, and then we'll talk about some time value of money concepts as well. So the first thing that we need to think about is the time value of money is based on the face value and the interest that can be earned. So back to our previous slide when we talked about the CD, that's what we're talking about with the time value of money. So over time, we use our money to grow, and the interest that we earn on that continues to grow as we go forward, and it makes for a larger sum of money as we get further along. The next topic we have to talk about is the present value, which is the current value of an asset based on the amount and timing of projected cash flow. So now in this chapter, we need to start thinking about the fact that if we buy a business, what are we really buying? Most people think, oh, I'm buying a building, I'm buying assets, I'm buying vehicles, I'm buying whatever. You are really not. What you are buying is the cash flow that those assets will allow you to earn in the future. So when you get your money and how you get your money makes a big difference. So the sooner we get our money, the better off we are. All right, and two scenarios that I can give you. In both scenarios, you're going to earn $1 million. In scenario number one, you're going to get $500,000 in year one, and then $125,000 a year for the next 4 years. So over the course of 5 years, you've earned $1 million. $500,000 year one, $125,000 year 2 through year 5. In scenario 2, I'm going to give you $125,000 in years 1 through 4 and $500,000 in year 5. Both cases, you earn $1 million. but which one is more valuable? The first scenario is clearly the more valuable one because you receive the money up front. So the more money you get at the beginning, the $500,000 that you get at the beginning, allows you to do lots of things with that money. You can invest it some more, you could spend it, you could do whatever you choose with it. But the key to that is the odds of you getting that money are much higher because it comes in the first year instead of the fifth year. So that's what we need to think about when we think about this present value concept. The next concept we have to talk about is this future value of an asset sometime in the future, assuming that compounded rate of interest that we've been talking about. All right, so whoever owns money, we're going to assume for this chapter that they want to invest it and get a return on it, either in the form of interest income, or in the form of profit. So that's the assumption we're going to make here. In order to do that, we're going to need to understand that there's something called a discount rate. Okay? The discount rate is that weighted average cost of capital that we looked at in Chapter 6, that big long formula. Well, this will be the number that we will discount those future cash flows. How much is it costing us to borrow the money to purchase this business so that we can go ahead and discount that money based on how much it's going to cost us to borrow that money. And that is a very important concept. So let's focus a little more on the present value of an asset based on the projected future cash flows. And we're going to look at three factors in this. One is the timing of the cash flow. In the previous slide, I mentioned that we're going to receive $1 million two different ways. One where you get $500,000 in year one. The second one where you get the $500,000 in year 5. And we mentioned that the scenario where you get most of the money up front is more valuable to us. One is because the risk of the cash flow being generated is much lower when we get a lot of the money up front than if we get it on the back end. Another part of that is you're able to take that money and invest it. If you invest it wisely, it can grow, so you can end up having more money at the end of the investment period. And then the final part of this, that discount rate that I just mentioned in the previous slide, the mix of capital used to finance the deal is going to make a big difference for us. Okay? So we need to think of all of those items. So we think of the present value of an asset, right? So if we're going to buy a business, if we're going to buy a hotel, if we're going to buy a restaurant, we have to think about what is the future value of that asset, right? And we do that by figuring our present value today is what? We're going to look at the cash flow in the future. And in order to do that, we have to figure out what is our value going to be today. So, how are we going to do these calculations? All right, there's 4 different ways that we can do this. Okay, and the first one is you can use complicated mathematical formulas. This is how this was created. I actually learned recently, a lot of the students in the business school, they still do some of those calculations in the finance department. Very effective, very accurate, as long as you know how to do those. We're not going to do that. The second one, the way I learned to do this, was shorter formulas using interest tables. Okay, very long, slow, cumbersome process, but it works. The third way, the one we're going to focus on, is this idea of using the business calculator. Actually, you're not going to use a calculator, you're going to use the apps that I had you download, but the app will do the same work that a business calculator does, and is very, very effective. The final way that most people today will do this kind of calculation is using computer spreadsheets. The challenge with computer spreadsheets, though, is quite often we don't understand exactly what it is that generated the number, so we don't know what actually happened. So as a department, we've made the decision that we're going to go ahead and use this business calculator so that we can understand what goes into the calculation, so that later on, when we see the numbers come out of a computer spreadsheet, we know what those numbers are and what they mean to us, instead of just seeing a bunch of numbers on a computer screen. So this business calculator, there's 5 key function keys that we need to focus on. Okay? Across the third row from the top, you're going to see the N on your calculator. All right, and that is the number of years. The next one you're going to see is the...
Please enter your password and then press pound. Hello,